Hello and welcome to my question 3 evaluation for my A2 media production. The question being, what have you learned from your audience feedback? Firstly, my audience feedback was through questionnaire research. What I learned mainly through my questionnaire research from my first question being, what is your favourite kind of movie to watch? That the majority of people prefer action films, then followed by drama films. The reason why I thought this helped me was because my main approach for the film to create was social realism, and I believe that social realism films require a little bit of drama. So knowing that my audience wanted a drama or preferred drama productions definitely helped with that. My next question being, if I based my production off of social realism, what would their thoughts be? Out of the 15 I asked, 7 people thought that it would be a good idea. So that kind of clarified and made it simple in order for me to make a specific, to focus on the specific genre of social realism. Jumping through to another question that definitely helped, I believe, with my short film was question 5. With the social realism, I make as the main role a female that ends up getting attacked or victimised at a party. As a member of the audience, what would your personal thoughts on this be? 9 people said that it'd be a good idea, but all of them then had to follow by it'd have to be approached and handled specifically and carefully. Whereas the other 6 split up evenly between they don't like the idea and that it needs to be handled, and then they're unsure about the idea itself. Following on to the other questions I chose, thinking of another genre I could do, it was all kind of mixed between horror and a thriller, and it was kind of between the characters typically seen in horror and thrillers, it was kind of uneven. So like serial killers and haunted house and psychopathic characters. So therefore I decided that it had been a good approach through my audience research to do a social realism, as all my audience members said were more clear and more they were clearer in terms of me asking about social realism compared to another genre. So another piece of audience research I did was a focus group, so I showed 3 audience members my rough cut of my film and got some feedback. Mainly, the first question I asked for my feedback was, what did they think about it, what did they like, and what would they change? They said that the topics that was represented were nicely tackled. They were very sensitive towards the themes that are typically behind social realism. They said that because the topics were handled correctly and were handled well, which is a very good thing for the topics I explored and the themes I explored through mine, as if they would have been handled wrong, could have been seen as quite comical. An issue that they would change was the music at the start, where the male character was drugging the drink for the female character to drink later on. They said, one of them said that there wasn't anything, no sound effects, nothing happening. It was just a quiet making of the drink. So they said that it would be a good idea to make quite a sinister approach to that, to make it seem obvious to the audience that suspense is building up through the act of making a drink, through the act of making the drink. My second question was, did they recognise the genre of the film? The genre, they said, was fairly easy to gather through the use of, through the through the use of costuming, locations, and the typical themes seen within it of like self-harm, depression, anxiety, and loneliness. My third question was about uncomfortable scenes during the film, and if the audience, if they as themselves found them disturbing or uncomfortable in any way. They said that none of the scenes that they saw, i.e. relating to the scene in the car and the self-harm scene in the bathroom, none of those scenes were disturbing or uncomfortable for them. They said that they were made to seem, they were made perfectly and just right and just long enough for them to be uncomfortable, which I thought was good feedback, because that was those are the specific scenes that I were more worried about in terms of being too sensitive, too graphic, and too disturbing for many audiences. Finally, my final question was just to get specific ideas back from the audience themselves about anything they would change in it to improve on it, to make it more, to make it just better overall. One of them was a opening monologue to get the characters' thoughts and ideas. Maybe like a monologue before, or like a monologue from after the events, and then the whole events of the movie occur, then a monologue at the end, linking back to the first monologue. So everything that happens you see is kind of like in the past. It's like a flashback. Voiceovers, maybe, to get perspective of the characters' thoughts from their perspective, from their perspective or from other people's perspectives. The fade to blacks to be longer for tension and unease, which I personally believe is a really good point, because that's what I mainly want after the uncomfortable scenes, to be dragged out for longer without actually making the scene longer, for the audience to be uncomfortable through just a pitch black transition to the next scene. And the drinking scene in the bathroom at the end was...
How's it going, darling?
And the drinking scene in the bathroom at the end, they all believed was too long, which personally I can understand why, because then it did expand for like 2 minutes, I believe. Yeah, so shortening that down will make it more emotionally upsetting, they said, and disturbing for the audience members, as they'll feel more sad for a shorter amount of time, but in the long haul they'll feel more connected towards the character and feel more emotionally attached and involved with them. Right, so that's all the audience research and feedback I got, with the good, the bad, and what I need to change. Thank you for listening. That was my question 3 evaluation, which was, what have you learned from your audience feedback?